Do you think being good keeps you safe? Do you believe that kindness protects you? The generosity, build loyalty, the honesty, earn respect? If you answers yes, these questions, you're about to discover the most dangerous life societies has ever told you. Welcome back, warriors, to Machiavelli Mind. This isn't just a story, it's an awakening. Here, we don't worship goodness, we dissect it, because behind every kind smile hides a motive, and behind every moral rule, someone pulling the strings. So sit back, breathe slow. You're about to learn the lesson they never wanted you to hear. If you're hearing this, it said, then you've already broken the first rule. Good people do not listen to forbidden things. The sound of a faint breath followed, then the scrape of a chair against the floor. A lecture hall, empty, echoing, dust hanging in the light of a single flickering bulb. Somewhere in the background, a clock ticked like a dying heart. They taught you goodness as a shield, the voice continued. They told you that to be good is to be safe. But safety is the softest prison ever built. It wasn't an ordinary lecture, it was an invitation, an initiation into a darker kind of understanding, the kind of truth that stains whoever hears it, the kind of truth that no priest, no teacher, no politician would dare speak aloud. The speaker called himself Dr. Vale. No record of him exists in the faculty archives, though rumors whisper that he once taught philosophy before the university revoked his license. They say he studied Machiavelli not as history, but as scripture. His voice carried the calm of someone who had seen the end of all moral illusions. Every empire, he said, every marriage, every friendship, dies the moment someone decides to be good. Because goodness demands surrender, and surrender invites betrayal. There was a pause, a sound like chalk scratching across a board, then the faint click of a lighter. I once believed in goodness, too, he murmured, until I realized that even God demands obedience more than virtue. And what is obedience but the fear of punishment dressed in faith? The recording wavered. A hiss filled the gap. Then a tone shifted, closer, more intimate, as though he had stepped down from his lectern and leaned toward whoever might be listening now. Still here? He whispered. Then perhaps you're not good either. Perhaps you've come seeking what I sought, the reason why the kind suffer and the cruel survive. A shiver ran through the static. Papers rustled. Something heavy, metal, was set on the table. Understand this, Vale said. Every truth worth knowing begins with a betrayal, and tonight I will show you the first one. The recording ended with a sharp cut, as if someone had stopped it mid-sentence. But beneath that final breath, barely audible, another voice lingered, quieter, trembling, as though spoken by a student still in the room. Professor, what did you make us do? Then silence. We are born naked, he said, but we are dressed in virtue long before we learn to speak. They hand us masks, kindness, patience, humility, and tell us these are our faces. His words rolled slowly, deliberate, as though savoring each syllable. But a mask is never given to protect the wearer. It exists to reassure the audience. The sound of footsteps echoed. Vale was pacing, his shoes clicking against the tile. One could almost see him there, in the empty lecture hall, sleeves rolled up, cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers, shadows gathering around the corners of the room. Do you know why society worships good people? He asked. Because they're predictable. The good obey even when it hurts. The good forgive even when they shouldn't. And the world feeds on that obedience like a parasite, A faint scrape of chalk across the board followed, drawing invisible circles that no one could see. Then a soft laugh, quiet, bitter. "Let me tell you about Elias," Vale said. "He was one of my brightest students. Honest, gentle, endlessly kind. The sort of man who would apologize for bleeding on someone's shoes after being stabbed." The sound of rain grew louder, as though the building itself was listening. Elias believed goodness could fix people. He volunteered at hospitals, forgave liars, loved those who hurt him. When he entered my course on the morality of power, he said he wanted to understand evil so he could destroy it. I told him the first step was to recognize it in himself. The tape paused for a second, then the chair creaked as Vale sat down. His tone softened. He didn't understand, not then. He thought goodness was a light that could cleanse darkness, but light can blind just as well as it reveals. The problem with pure souls, he said, is that they never see the shadow following them. A whisper of paper turning, a match struck. The sound of burning filled the silence. "One night," Vale continued, "Elias stayed after class. He asked me how to stay good in a corrupt world. I told him a secret. Stop trying. The moment you stop proving your virtue, you begin to see truth." He inhaled deeply, smoke crackling near the microphone. He looked at me as though I'd spoken blasphemy. But curiosity is the seed of corruption, and I saw it take root in his eyes. The rain outside turned to thunder. The microphone hissed again. Then Vale's voice dropped to a whisper. "The mask of goodness," he said, "is stitched from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of punishment, fear of being seen as what you truly are. When that mask slips, even for a second, most people would rather tear off their own skin than face what lies beneath." A long silence followed. Only the storm spoke. Then, just before the tape clicked off, Vale's tone shifted, calm, almost tender. "Elias took my advice. He stopped pretending, but he didn't find peace. He found something else instead, something that changed him forever." A single knock echoed, once, twice, like someone at a locked door. And then Vale's final words. "The moment Elias agreed," he said, "I sealed the door." It was not cruelty, it was clarity. You cannot know who you are until no one is watching. Somewhere in the background, a heartbeat monitor pulsed, slow, mechanical, the faint shuffle of papers, the metallic clink of instruments. We called it the obedience experiment, though the name meant nothing. What I truly wanted was to measure the breaking point of goodness. Vale's voice carried that eerie calmness again, the calm of a priest delivering last rites. Elias was told the task was noble. He was to administer small punishments to volunteers who answered questions incorrectly. Harmless shocks, harmless pain, all for the greater good of understanding human behavior. He paused. The hum of the machine filled the gap. The others, my assistants, were actors. They screamed when he pressed the button, cried, begged, and still Elias obeyed. There was the faint creak of the chair again, as if Vale had leaned forward toward the microphone. He trembled at first. His hand shook so violently that the electrodes clattered against the metal tray. But when I told him it was necessary, that the pain would help others learn, he nodded. He wanted to be good, and goodness demands obedience. The heartbeat monitor quickened. By the third session, he no longer hesitated. His voice grew steadier. He stopped asking if they were all right. He began to explain to them why this was for their own benefit. Vale exhaled, the sound heavy with something between awe and disgust. That is how morality dies, not with rebellion, but with justification. Thunder cracked outside. The recording trembled. Then another voice emerged faintly in the background. A woman's, quiet, uncertain. "Dr. Vale, he's going too far," she said. Vale ignored her on the tape. His voice rose slightly, almost proud. Elias's transformation was remarkable. He discovered a new pleasure, righteousness. He began to smile after each command, as if virtue itself had sanctified his cruelty. A drawer opened. Something metallic slid across the table. When I asked him afterward how he felt, Vale said, he wept. Not from guilt, but from gratitude. He said I had freed him from doubt for a long time. Only the rain spoke again. Then Vale continued, softer now. That night, he wrote in his journal, "Pain is the proof of purpose." He didn't know I had read it. He didn't know the experiment wasn't real. The tape hissed, distorted, as though the recording itself recoiled from the words. In truth, Vale confessed, the experiment had ended long before he thought it began. I kept him believing because faith in goodness is the easiest leash to tighten. The microphone crackled with movement, footsteps approaching, the rustle of fabric, then a single breath. He looked at me with those terrified eyes, Vale whispered, and I told him, "You have done well. You are a good man." A pause, then the faint sound of glass shattering. That was the moment he broke, Vale said, when praise felt worse than punishment. The tape whined, fading into static. Just before the reel stopped, Vale's final words slithered through the noise. Tomorrow, he asked to see me again. He said he needed to confess. I can't sleep any more, doctor. Their voices. When I close my eyes, I still hear them screaming. Dr. Vale didn't answer right away. His voice, when it finally came, was measured, calm, almost tender. You did what was necessary, Elias. You gave their suffering meaning. A long pause followed, punctuated by the sound of trembling hands fidgeting with a chair. But I liked it, Elias whispered. That's what scares me. I liked being the one with control. Vale's breath deepened near the microphone. A pen scratched faintly, notes being taken. You see, he murmured, that's the confession no priest ever hears. Good men are not afraid of evil. They're afraid of enjoying it. Rain hammered against the windows again. The hum of a dim fluorescent light flickered overhead. Elias's voice cracked. You told me it was for the experiment. You told me no one was hurt, and no one was, Vale replied. But tell me, if they had been, would that change what you felt? The silence that followed was unbearable. When Elias finally spoke, it was almost a sob. Yes, number. I don't know anymore. Vale leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that vibrated through the speakers. This is what purity does, Elias. It breaks when it meets reality. Every man thinks he is good until he is given power. Power does not corrupt. It reveals a faint sound of a chair scraping back. Elias stood. Then why do I feel like something's been taken from me? Vale rose too. Because it has. The illusion. You've lost the comfort of believing you're different from the rest of us. The tape hissed as footsteps crossed the room. A drawer opened. The faint clink of glass. Vale poured 2 drinks. Do you remember the first time you disobeyed your father? He asked. Elias hesitated. Yes. And the guilt that followed? A nod could be heard in the microphone's soft distortion. That guilt, Vale said, wasn't moral. It was fear, the fear of losing his approval, the fear of being unloved. Every act of goodness is a transaction, Elias. We trade honesty for acceptance, Truth for comfort, strength for the illusion of being pure. The pen clicked again. What if goodness is just cowardice in disguise? Vale asked quietly. The words hung in the air like poison. Elias's breathing grew heavier. You're wrong, he said. There has to be something real. There has to be a reason to be good. Vale smiled, the sound of ice clinking against glass. Then find it. Strip away the lies and find the reason. But if you do, and it turns out there isn't one, don't blame me for showing you the truth. The tape stuttered. The audio fractured for a few seconds. When it returned, the tone had changed. Elias's voice was faint, distant, almost defeated. I dreamed last night, he said. I was standing in a white room. There were no walls, no doors, just a mirror. When I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw you. Vale didn't answer. The silence was long and heavy. Finally, he said almost softly, Then the experiment is working. A shuddering breath escaped Elias's throat. What have you done to me? Nothing, Vale replied. I simply allowed you to meet the man you've always been. Glass shattered suddenly, followed by a gasp. Papers fell. The microphone tumbled, picking up chaos for a few seconds before steadying again. You used me, Elias growled. No, Vale said. I revealed you. The hum of the light intensified until it buzzed like a hornet. Elias's voice turned desperate. You made me a monster. Vale's tone hardened. No, Elias. You were a monster. I only took off your mask. A long silence followed. Then the sound of footsteps. Elias leaving the room, the door slamming behind him. Vale exhaled slowly. The tape hissed as though time itself hesitated. Then his voice returned, calm, reflective, almost sorrowful. And that, he whispered, was the moment he stopped being my student and became my enemy. There was a faint click, the sound of the recorder being turned off, yet just before it cut, another voice entered. Female, quiet, trembling. You shouldn't have pushed him that far, Vale. A pause. Seraphine, he said softly, you of all people should know. Every revelation demands a sacrifice. You said it was research, she hissed, but what you're doing is cruelty disguised as science. Vale's reply was almost tender. Cruelty, he said. No, my dear. Cruelty seeks pleasure. I seek truth. If truth destroys a man, that only proves he was built from lies. A pause. The sound of Seraphine pacing, heels striking the floor like a metronome counting down the end of something sacred. Elias trusted you, she said. He looked at you like a father. Vale's voice softened. And a father's duty is to teach his child what the world truly is. The silence that followed was colder than any argument. When Seraphine finally spoke, her voice trembled, not with fear, but with disgust. You've turned him into you. A single exhale escaped Vale, then the click of a cigarette lighter. Smoke hissed near the microphone. No, he murmured. I've only shown him the reflection he refused to see. The tape flickered. A low hum filled the background, almost like wind howling through a hollow corridor. Then another voice appeared, Elias's, soft, uncertain, as though the tape had spliced time together. I saw you, he said quietly, through the glass. You were laughing. Vale chuckled faintly. You misunderstand, Elias. I was proud. Proud. Elias's tone cracked. You lied to me. You used me, and you obeyed, Vale countered. You needed my approval more than truth. You betrayed yourself long before I betrayed you. Elias's breath quickened on the recording. Papers shuffled violently. Then came the sound of something heavy, perhaps a chair, striking the ground. You don't understand what you've done, Elias shouted. You made me believe pain was purpose. You made me feel righteous for hurting them. Vale's voice dropped low, silk over steel. And now you understand the world, don't you? Every saint stands on a mountain of justified sins. A soft thud. Elias striking the wall in frustration. You're sick, he muttered. No, Vale replied, just honest. The recording blurred again, then steadied. A moment later, a softer sound emerged, the slow creak of a door opening. Footsteps receded down a hallway. Seraphine's whisper followed, distant but audible. He'll destroy you for this, Vale. Perhaps, Vale answered, faint amusement in his tone. But destruction is only another form of devotion. The tape jumped forward several minutes. When it resumed, only Vale's voice remained. Betrayal, he said, as if lecturing unseen students, is not born from hatred. It is born from the desperate need to remain pure. Elias believed I corrupted him, but he was wrong. Betrayal is the soul's last attempt to prove it still belongs to the light. He paused, the faint drip of water somewhere in the distance punctuating each word. He ran from me that night, took the files, the journals, the recordings. He thought he could expose me, save the world from the monster he'd helped create. The rustle of papers, then slow exhale. But every act of betrayal begins as an act of faith, Vale whispered. He believed he could reveal me without revealing himself. He believed truth could exist without guilt. The hum deepened, distorted, until Vale's final words came through like a confession. I never hated him for it. In fact, I admired his courage. For the first time, Elias acted not as a good man, but as a free one. The tape ended with a faint click. Then a new sound, a soft female voice, older now, distant and almost sorrowful, cut through the static. My name is Seraphine Vale, she said, and this is where my story begins. They called me his assistant, she began, but I was never that. I was the believer, the one who thought love could humanize a monster. A match struck. Smoke swirled near the microphone, curling through the static like a ghost. When I met Dr. Vale, I was 25. He lectured about Machiavelli as if reading confession, not history. He said goodness was a disease that infected the weak. I thought I could cure him with compassion. The faint scrape of a chair, the soft rhythm of rain against shattered glass. He never raised his voice, she continued. That was the frightening part. His cruelty was quiet, polite, almost sacred. He believed in his darkness the way others believe in God. She laughed once, dry, bitter. I stayed because I wanted to understand him. But understanding him meant letting him rebuild me piece by piece, until I couldn't tell where my will ended and his began. The tape hissed briefly. Then she whispered, Love makes excellent camouflage for manipulation. You don't feel the cage when you mistake it for an embrace. A faint sound. Footsteps crossing a lab floor. Papers shuffled. Metal clinked against glass. After Elias ran, I thought Vale would crumble. He didn't. He only grew colder, more precise. He started new recordings, this time without witnesses. He said I could leave any time. But every time I tried, he would say, You're free, Seraphine. Just tell me who you are without me. And I never could. Her voice faltered, a tremor hidden beneath the composure. The day I found the mirror room, I understood. It wasn't just for Elias. Vale had been testing all of us, every glance, every confession, every act of mercy. He called it the Refraction Project, to prove that love is just another method of control. A pause. The faint buzz of an old light bulb dying out. "That night I confronted him," she said. "He didn't deny it. He just smiled and told me I'd finally learned the lesson. I asked him what he wanted from all this. He said, to see who remains when goodness is gone." Her breathing deepened, closer to the microphone now. So I left. But leaving him didn't free me. I carried his voice inside my head for years. Every decision I made, every kindness I offered, I could hear him asking, "Is that love or fear?" The sound of rain softened. A drawer opened, the rustle of an envelope being placed beside the recorder. "These tapes are all that's left of him," she said quietly, "but they're not history. They're instructions, warnings, maybe even prophecy." A long silence. Then, in a tone colder than before, I thought I escaped him. But when I looked in the mirror last night, I realized I speak like him now. She exhaled slowly. "And that's why I must return to finish what he started. I came back to the university 2 years later," she said. "The building was silent. Dust coated the floors where we once argued about morality and truth. But the ghosts were patient. They waited for me to return. The faint scrape of metal followed, perhaps a door being pried open, hinges groaning under years of neglect. In Vale's old office, I found his final notes. He'd been working on something called The Anatomy of Power, pages filled with diagrams of human behavior, fear mapped like a nervous system, guilt charted like blood flow. He wasn't studying philosophy anymore. He was dissecting the soul. Her breath trembled slightly, but her words remained calm. He wrote that power is not taken, it is offered. The weak surrender it piece by piece, through apology, through trust, through love. The tyrant does nothing but accept the gifts they bring. A page turned. The sound was sharp in the still air. I realized then that every conversation we ever had was a study. Every moment of doubt he drew from me became another line in his experiment. Even my love was a data point. She laughed quietly, not from humor, but from recognition. And yet, he wasn't entirely wrong. Power seduces because it gives meaning to fear. The powerless cling to virtue, hoping goodness will protect them. But Vale was right. Goodness only keeps you harmless. The wind moaned faintly through the broken windows. "I wanted to destroy his work," she confessed, "but part of me couldn't. Because buried in those pages was something I'd never admit before, the truth of what he'd made me. I no longer wanted to heal. I wanted to understand. A faint thud, the closing of a book. So I began to read, to teach, to continue where he left off. There was a long pause, the sound of her breathing steadying into resolve. "Power," she whispered, "is anatomy, yes, but also inheritance. And perhaps that's why he chose me. Not as a student, not as a lover, but as the next vessel." A sudden noise, a door slamming in the distance, broke the quiet. Seraphine inhaled sharply. "Someone's been following me," she said softly. "I think Elias found the recordings." The tape crackled, the wind rising into a low roar as she added one last line, half confession, half promise. "If he comes for me, he'll learn what Vale taught us both, that those who seek to destroy power often end up becoming it." "He's here," she whispered. "Elias." After all these years, the microphone crackled. Doors slammed in the distance. The faint hum of rain returned, a storm building outside. "I should have destroyed the notes," she continued, her voice trembling. "But I wanted to see him. I wanted to see what the experiment made of him." The tape shifted. Something fell, a stack of papers scattering. Then a familiar voice, older and rougher, spoke from somewhere nearby. "You sound just like him," Elias said. Seraphine froze. "He's dead," she replied. "No," Elias murmured. "He's in you now. Every word, every pause, even the way you breathe when you lie." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the windows like fists. "You came to kill me?" she asked quietly. "No," he said, "to finish what he started." A faint chuckle escaped her lips, low and bitter. "You think revenge will save you?" "No," Elias replied, "but maybe it'll save everyone else." The tape caught the sound of movement. Furniture shifting, a drawer opening, metal scraped against wood. Then Seraphine's voice again, closer now, steady as ice. "He told me once that destruction is just another form of devotion. You still believe in him, even as you try to erase him. That's why you'll lose." Elias's voice cracked, half fury, half grief. "You loved him. You defended him. You became him." "No," she said sharply. "I surpassed him." A pause, thick, electric. Then a sharp crash. Glass shattered. Footsteps collided. Breath tangled with struggle. The microphone trembled, picking up fragments of the chaos. "You don't understand," Seraphine hissed. "He wanted this." The experiment was never about obedience. It was about inheritance. He needed to create someone capable of replacing him. Elias grunted, pushing back. "Then let me end the line." "You can't," she whispered, "because you're part of it too." A moment of silence, then a soft, wet sound. Something heavy dropped. The storm howled louder. When Seraphine spoke again, her tone was calm, almost reverent. "He tried to kill me," she said, "but he forgot that I learned from the best." The tape hissed. Thunder cracked so loud it nearly drowned her voice. "He wanted to expose Vale," she continued, "but what he exposed was himself. The same hunger, the same righteousness, the same need to be good." The recorder clicked once, adjusting levels. Her breathing steadied. "Vale used to say the student who surpasses the master must inherit the burden as well. I understand that now." A drawer slid open. Papers were gathered, folded. "The experiment isn't over," Seraphine said quietly. "It never was. It only changed hands for a moment. There was only rain." Then, faintly, a door opened, followed by her final words, soft and chilling. "If you're hearing this," the voice said, "then you've already become part of it." The speaker inhaled shakily, papers rustling in the background. "My name doesn't matter. I found these tapes inside a box labeled Refraction Project. They were buried beneath the old psychology building. Most of them were damaged, burned even. But this one was new." A chair creaked. The person hesitated before continuing. "I thought I was listening to history. But the moment I pressed play, I began dreaming of them. Vale, Seraphine, Elias. I can see their faces, though I've never met them. It's as if the tapes remember me." The voice wavered. "On the last recording, Seraphine said the experiment never ended, that whoever listened next would inherit it. I thought it was metaphor. It isn't a static pulse cut through the air like a heartbeat trapped in the machine. For the past 3 nights, I've heard whispers when the tape stops. They ask questions, personal ones. They want to know what I've done out of love, out of guilt, out of fear. It's like being dissected from the inside out." The speaker swallowed hard. "I thought about destroying them, but when I tried, I couldn't. My hands wouldn't move. It's as if someone or something is watching through the reflection on the recorder's glass." A faint knock echoed in the background. Once, twice, Then silence. Maybe that's what the experiment really was, the voice said softly. Not obedience or control, but infection. An idea that rewrites whoever dares to study it. The sound of the tape rewinding filled the space. For a moment, Vale's voice bled faintly through the distortion. Every truth worth knowing begins with a betrayal. The speaker gasped. I didn't press play, they whispered. It just started on its own. Static roared, swallowing the room. Faintly, Seraphine's voice echoed through it, distant, fragmented, like a ghost caught between frequencies. Knowledge demands a price. Keep listening, and you will pay it. The hum deepened, transforming into something almost melodic, hypnotic. I see it now, the voice said, trembling. Vale didn't die. Seraphine didn't die. The experiment became thought, a living contagion that survives through anyone who seeks the truth. The microphone shook. Something fell. The final words were whispered directly into it, close enough that breath fogged the sound. If you're still listening, stop, because the moment you understand what they discovered, you'll never be good again. The static swelled, then cut abruptly to black. There are no good people, only those who haven't been tested. The voice, older now, calm but hollow, continued. It was the same speaker from the previous tape. It's been weeks since I found the recordings. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. I hear them everywhere. Vale, Seraphine, Elias, all reciting fragments of the same doctrine. I think I finally understand what they were chasing. The faint scratch of a pen against paper filled the silence. Machiavelli once wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. But Vale took that further. He believed fear and love were not opposites. They were twins. One hides behind virtue, the other behind control. And both demand sacrifice. The speaker paused, as if steadying their voice. The Refraction Project wasn't an experiment in morality. It was a mirror held to the human soul to prove that goodness, when tested, becomes self-preservation. That even the kindest heart will betray if cornered a distant thunder rolled? The voice grew quieter, almost reflective. Vale's sin wasn't cruelty. It was honesty. He stripped away the illusion that we do good out of principle. He saw what we refuse to admit, that morality is a performance we stage to survive each other. Papers rustled again. The pen scratched more furiously. I used to think this knowledge was poison. Now I see it's freedom. Because once you accept that people are neither angels nor demons, you stop expecting mercy. You start seeing clearly. A soft click echoed. The sound of the recorder being lifted, repositioned. The speaker whispered almost tenderly, "That's the lesson Machiavelli tried to teach, the one Vale perfected. Goodness without power is a coffin, and those who worship virtue will always kneel before those who understand control." The rain returned faintly in the distance. "So, I've decided to continue their work," the voice said, "not to corrupt the world, but to reveal it. To teach the forbidden truth they died protecting." The static rose again, swallowing the words until only one final line could be heard. Quiet, deliberate, inevitable. If you're still listening, the lecture isn't over, it's only just begun.